Hey YouTube, this is Gracie and welcome back to Card-tober, a series in which I show you how to make a Disneybounding Halloween card every day in the month of October. Today's card is Disneybounding as the Hatbox Ghost from the Haunted Mansion. If you guys have ever ridden this ride, especially at Disneyland, he is a classic character and they have recently brought him back from the dead. He is in the scene right before the graveyard and he's just really cool, really spooky, and just really high tech. He's really awesome looking. Anyway, so I have done a version of him here on this card. So I decided to do kind of a box, kind of a hat box, kind of a little bit in between of a box and actually the ghost himself. It's kind of hard to explain. So the background here is a dark blue because his main color, so this kind of varies again, that, you know, color integrity thing that we had talked about before. On the ride, he's obviously lit up with black light, so you've got the black. You could see his skeleton in parts of him, so there's a little bit of like light blue in there and white and all kinds of fun colors, ghost colors. So that's kind of the color scheme that I went with also. So I have mostly black for the outline or the box. The inside is embossed with a really cool design that's kind of emulating the like wallpaper that's in the ride itself, and also what I envision his suit to be made out of. I envision it to be very, very fancy and like with lots of filigree on it and that kind of thing. So that's why I decided to do that embossed folder in the background. I did the top hat in there as well because it is, you know, he does wear a hat, a top hat. And then I used the sentiment Happy Haunting because he's definitely haunting the house. And then I did these two little green dots to represent his green glowing eyes. On the inside, I did Haunted Halloween, and this is done with Stencil. And then I did my G stamp with, again, two more green little eyes. So let me go ahead and show you guys how to make this card. Let me put this aside here. I started off with a white card. That's my classic size 5.5 by 4 inches. And I've already done my G stamp with the two little green dots and the inside here. So the next thing I did was cut down my navy blue cardstock, which is the exact size of the card, 5.5 by 4 inches. And I ran it through an embossing folder. The embossing folder that I used is this one here from Darice or Darice. Anyway, and it's just this really cool, like, wallpapery design is how I would, you know, call that. The next thing I did was I ran through these two ink pads. So I used a color box in cayenne and then frost white. I did just a very little bit of frost white. All I did was I took it, the ink pad, and then just slightly grazed over the embossed or raised edges in like little circular motions. I didn't want it to be all over, and I was trying really hard to not get these like jagged like edge marks. So I'm kind of using like the middle part of it as best I can. Obviously it's not going to be exact, but that's pretty much how I achieved that look. So again, like I said, I didn't want it to be all over. I just wanted it to be kind of random and just little bits of highlight. Then I took a little bit of the frost white and just kind of pounced it in certain areas. And I tried to do it in areas that were going to show because a lot of this background does get covered up. And I don't know why I did it with the white. I just thought it looked kind of ghostly and kind of cool. So that's why I decided to do just a little bit of that. These lids are always complicated to close. There we go. And very, very messy. So you'll want to set that aside to dry for a little bit, but in my case, I'm just kind of swooshing around, let the air get to it. It does take a while for color box to dry, so just be aware of that. It's going to be a little bit on the messy side. And now we're going to use the Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue to glue that down onto the card. Just very simple, really quick. flip that over and place that onto the card. The next thing I did was I cut down some black cardstock. The size of the very first frame that I used, ooh, here we go, there we go, was, let me see here, 6 1/4 by 4 1/2. And I just cut that piece of black cardstock first. Then I took my 2 die cuts, which were rectangles, and I placed them right inside of each other, and they ended up cutting out 2 frames at the same time, which is exactly what I wanted. And then the inside I just put aside for another card for another project. So this ginormous frame is slightly bigger than the card itself, so you have to be very careful how you place this down onto the card itself. So let me show you a little trick. Before I do that, let me show you the die cuts that I use. So this is from Simply Defined Scrapbooking Made Simple, the must-haves rectangles, and here's the code number for that. And I just did it, I chose the ones that were going to fit the largest on here. So what we're going to do is just flip the frame over and just add a little bit of glue, just kind of in little dashes or dots, just because you don't need too much of this stuff. It does spread, and we don't want it to be too messy, so we're just using little bits like that. And now we're going to make sure we have the card going the right way. We're going to try our best to fit that right where you glued it, and hopefully we have it in the right spot. If not, we did, oh, now it's not even gonna hold. Of course not, because we're doing it on video. As soon as I do anything on camera, it ends up not working. All right, let's see if that works. We'll hold it down for a little bit longer this time. Carefully flip that over. Yay, that worked out. Perfect. Okay, so you can always go back in and lift up the edges that, you know, obviously aren't glued down and add some more glue to it. But in our instance, that's going to do just fine. The next thing I did was I cut out my top hat, and this is from the Cricut Cartridge Happy Hauntings, this one here. And I just used that, and I believe this was size, oh my goodness, this was size like 16 or 15. The hat itself, I tried to do like just for like a couple inches or so, and it came out like this big. It was teeny tiny. So I had to go really, really big on this one, and all we're gonna do is actually glue this down to the card itself, making sure to not glue where these cut lines are, because you don't want the glue going through that. And if you are anything like me, you're gonna want to tilt it just slightly, just because it's kind of more cute that way. Okay, and then hold that down. The next thing to do is get your next size frame, turn it over, and add some pop dots, which I think I may have ran out of all of a sudden. So give me 1 second, let me go run and grab some. All right. Totally forgot that I ran out of these. So we're using some slightly large ones. We may have to cut them down. Let's cut these down. Cut them in half. This should do the trick. Okay, and then just place them in all the corners. I think I ended up using so many of my pop dots in my Lock, Shock, and Barrel cards, so didn't realize that I had actually run out. Okay, I press that down a little bit more. And take all these backings off. Goodness, this takes so long. Okay. Now we're just going to flip that over. Make sure to place that in the correct spot, right on the inside. press down on all the pop dots. And there you have it. The next step is to get your Happy Hauntings. And I believe this was in size 6. So this was about half the size of the hat, which is kind of funny. But anyway, and then I took my Copic pens and the same blues from my last video. I'll be leaving the names of them in the description box. And just kind of inked around all of the letters. Now what we're going to do is just glue it to the smaller frame here. And we may also use a pop dot in the center to just kind of help it stabilize. Let's go ahead and put that in the center there, and maybe this one here. Okay. Take those backings off, and now we can place this down onto the card and then pull up the sides that we're going to glue down and add the glue. So now that we've had those down, you can just leave it like that if you want. I wanted just a little bit more stability in it, so I added just a little bit of glue here and there. Okay, just so that it helped, since it was so large, help it kind of hold its place. So there you have it. The next thing to do, if you want, is to add some distressing with the same color box that I used in my last video in Cayenne, and we'll go ahead and actually do it right now. All I did was I inked the edges, and making sure to ink the inner frame as well, and that's just going at an extreme angle, so that way you just get little bits here and there. And since we didn't glue that down perfectly, we can actually lift that up, push that back down, and now it'll stay in place. So going ahead and just doing all the way around in the Cayenne blue, and that kind of gives it like a very ghost spooky kind of vibe. The next thing I did was cut out my little tiny green pieces, and I just took some green cardstock, a scrap from my Oogie Boogie card, and I used this hole punch here, and it's from Fiskars. It's just one of the very small hole punchers. Cut out 2 of the little circles and glued them down onto the corner. But yeah, anyway, there is your Disneybounding Hatbox Ghost card, Halloween card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!